Hey everyone, welcome. Big love to my global family, and if this is your first time here, we're honored to have you join us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, US. Navy makes noise, Houthi port wiped off the map. This was the US response to the massive attack on Houthi on March 15th. In the early hours of March 16th, the United States made it clear to the Houthis that this fight was far from over. Just after midnight, the U.S. continued its assault, targeting secondary objectives that hadn't been hit during the first day of the operation. But what the Americans didn't know was that the Houthis had one last trick up their sleeves. Around 12:30 a.m. on March 16th, the crews aboard the USS Stout and the Jason Dunham, unshaken by the previous night's attacks, launched a barrage of Tomahawk missiles right on schedule. That strike took out one of the Houthis' main bases for launching small boats and surface drones. While that was a big deal, the U.S. was just getting started. That same morning in Turkey, the B-1 bombers that had attacked Yemen 12 hours earlier returned to base, refueled, rearmed, and headed back out, this time with fresh crews, full tanks, and a new target. At around 4:15 a.m., the B-1S launched another round of AIM-120 JASSM missiles from over 370 kilometers away. With Houthis' air defenses in total disarray, the bombers had nothing to worry about. Nearly every Houthi air defense battery was down, and the only weapons they had left were portable systems like the old Soviet-made Igla missiles or truck-mounted ZSU cannons. But without radar, those systems couldn't hit anything flying above 8,000 feet, and with bombers cruising at altitudes of up to 60,000 feet, they were completely out of reach. Still, the Americans didn't know that this strike on one of the Houthis' key drone bases would spark serious retaliation. Less than 24 hours after the B-1S dropped their payloads and returned, multiple F-35Cs from the Black Knight Squadron took off from the deck of the Harry S. Truman just after sunrise. They screamed toward the coast in search of their next target, two weapon storage facilities in Marijufarnite, which the F-35S blew up without even a peep from the Houthis. But that silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. The Houthis were saving their ammo for something bigger. Just as lunch was being served aboard the Truman Strike Group, combat observers aboard the Gettysburg picked up a familiar sight: incoming aerial contacts. But this time, there were a lot more of them. The day before, the Houthis had launched just 2 Al-Mandab-2 missiles at the strike group. Today they threw everything they had, hoping to overwhelm the American air defenses. Instead of spreading their attack out, the Houthis focused everything on a single ship, Gettysburg, hoping to land a decisive hit. As the crew of Gettysburg started tracking targets and selecting weapons, the Tactical Action Officer, or TAO, noticed a serious problem. The group's spy radar could track up to 200 targets at once, but it could only engage 12 to 18 at the same time. With at least 12 missiles headed straight for them, the TAO didn't want to risk missing slower-moving threats, like drones, that could sneak in behind the missile barrage. That's when he came up with a genius plan. At that moment, the senior cruiser commander, higher in rank than the other ship captains, took tactical command of the group. He ordered the Stout and Jason Dunham to fire SM-2 missiles at the farthest targets, while Gettysburg handled the ones closest in. This reduced the number of missiles Gettysburg had to deal with from 12 to 8, but that was still dangerously high. With just seconds to act, the ship's captain made a bold call: fire 1 SM-2 missile at each of the first 6 incoming threats. This went against the usual tactic of launching 2 missiles per target to ensure a kill. But this wasn't a classroom drill, this was real life. With about a 90% chance of taking down a non-maneuvering target, all it took was for the missile's pre-formed fragments, around 10,000 of them, to rip through the incoming threat. That's exactly what happened. On the radar screens, the Gettysburg crew watched one target after another explode, until only 2 were left. But with their SM-2 inventory running low, the captain made another unconventional call. Instead of trying to engage the last 2 targets from 50 miles out, the usual sweet spot that allows time for a second shot if needed, they waited, saving their last few missiles. They didn't know how long this battle would go on, and they needed every round they had. The ship still had 10,000 rounds of 20mm ammo for its CIWS, or CIWS system, which was crucial for shooting down drones, Since its 5-inch deck gun couldn't really hit something that small and fast, their only other real hope? The advanced RIM-162 Evolved Sea Sparrow missiles, or ESSM. These missiles are packed in launch cells, with 4 in a single vertical launch system cell. Each one weighs about 620 pounds, but only around 86 pounds of that is actually the explosive warhead. The ESSM is a lot smaller than its cousins, the SM-2 or SM-6. So what's the point of using it? Thanks to its Mk-134 rocket motor, the ESSM can fly at Mach 4, making it even faster than the SM-6. But that speed comes at a price. It burns through its fuel in just 8.5 seconds. That's because it's a point defense weapon. There's no strict definition of what counts as point defense, but generally it refers to short-range, last-ditch protection, usually within about 27 miles. That gives the ESSM roughly 60 seconds to hit an incoming threat before it gets too close to the ship and risks spraying it with debris. Normally, ESSMs are treated as the ship's last line of defense. But the captain made a bold move. He wanted to use them offensively, something that hadn't been done before. Even though no one was sure it would work, the Tactical Action Officer, or TAO, ordered the crew to fire 2 ESSMs at incoming threats as soon as they crossed the 27-mile mark. The crew braced for impact. Luckily, it worked like a charm. The captain's gutsy call paid off, and both threats were destroyed about 10 miles from the ship. Now it was time to go on the offensive again. After that attack on the Gettysburg, U.S. Central Command realized more had to be done to take out the Houthis' command and control systems. It was clear they were still organized and fighting hard, but the U.S. had the perfect weapon to stop that. Since all of the Houthis' fixed command centers had been destroyed, they'd started using mobile command posts, which were basically just pickup trucks with radios in the back. They were much harder to hit, even though they weren't armored. That's why the U.S. Air Force brought out a special weapon, the GBU-53 Stormbreaker bomb. It's based on a 250-pound small-diameter bomb, but only about 105 pounds of it is actually explosives. What makes it deadly is its guidance system, especially what's on the nose. A tri-mode seeker. It's called that because it uses 3 different tracking systems. Infrared imaging, with a 640 by 512 high-res sensor, able to detect heat signatures like a truck's exhaust with 0.1 degree accuracy. Millimeter wave radar at 94 GHz, which can see through smoke, dust, and sandstorms with 1-foot precision, crucial in Yemen's desert terrain where infrared is often useless. Semi-active laser guidance, where the bomb follows a laser pointed at the target, kind of like how the SM-2 works in its terminal phase. But this system can guide the entire flight if needed, even if the bomb doesn't get radar updates mid-air. With this triple threat tracking system, pilots can either preset the bomb's tracking mode, or let it switch modes automatically in flight, depending on the weather and environment. We don't know exactly which tracking mode they used, but what's clear is, they nailed those mobile command trucks. Later that day, more strikes followed, including Navy P-8 Poseidon aircraft, launching missiles at Houthi training camps. That's when the Houthis decided it was time to hit back. Still fuming over the attacks on their drone facilities, they wanted to remind the U.S. they weren't out of the fight just yet. While sailors in the Truman Strike Group were gearing up for another round of airstrikes after lunch, the escort ships picked up something odd on radar. These fast-moving tracks didn't look like planes or missiles, but the radar was definitely picking up something. Once the system was fine-tuned, the crew realized what they were looking at. A drone swarm, heading straight for the aircraft carrier. To save ammo on the escort ships, the strike group commander made a quick call: scramble every available F-18 on board the carrier to intercept. Within minutes, F-18s were rolling off the deck, and if you looked closely at their wings, you'd see a different loadout than usual. Each one was carrying AIM-120 AMRAAMs, one of the U.S. military's go-to air-to-air missiles, and today, that missile was going to be used against incoming drones. An F-18 Super Hornet can carry up to 10 AIM-120 AMRAAMs when it's set up for an air-to-air mission. That typically means 2 missiles on the wingtips, 6 under the wings, and 2 more mounted on the fuselage. The AMRAAM flies at 4 times the speed of sound and has a range of nearly 160 kilometers. It's a powerful air defense weapon, mainly designed to take down enemy fighter jets. But it's also capable of hitting other targets like missiles, balloons, and today, drones. Even with its impressive targeting systems and 40G terminal maneuverability, designed to outsmart even the most skilled pilots, there's still one question: how do these jets even see drones, which show up as tiny dots on their screens? That's where the Block II Infrared Search and Track IRST system comes in. It's a long-range passive infrared sensor that picks up the heat signatures of aircraft engines. In this case, it's mounted on a modified central fuel tank. The IRST sensors are strong enough to detect a ballistic missile at 220 kilometers, a cruise missile at 92 kilometers, and even something drone-sized, like a person, at around 148 kilometers. Once the drones are locked in, each aircraft can track up to 12 targets at once with full fire control data. With about 10 drones in the air, that's more than enough to handle the threat head-on. For the next 7 hours, American fighters took down wave after wave of drones. While the exact number isn't confirmed, media reports suggest dozens were destroyed. At the end of the 7-hour air battle, U.S. commanders were left surprised and frankly impressed by how skilled and persistent the enemy was. That's why the U.S. already has a plan in motion. In the coming days, they're aiming to finally bring the Houthis to their knees. But for now, it's goodbye. Until the next round. Thanks so much for watching. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Here at X News, we're committed to bringing you quality updates. See you soon in the next video. Take care of yourself.